Welcome to Spoiler Alert. I'm your host, Sheldon Barlow, here as always with Evan Arujo. And with Captain America Brave New World just around the corner, we are getting ready to be probably disappointed. Am I right?
I would say we're mediocrely excited.
Yeah, to me, it looks like it's going to be the definition of mediocrity.
Yeah.
But with that, what we do on this show occasionally is we go back in time. Not because we have a time machine, but because we're going to go back and review movies leading up to the new release that's coming out. So in this case, that means Captain America.
Woohoo!
Now, that said, that doesn't mean we're going to go back and review all 30 Marvel movies that lead up to Brave New World, because that would be completely ridiculous. But we are going to review the Captain America trilogy that was a big part of Marvel in the 2010s. And as a special, we're also going to review The Falcon and the Winter Soldier that we released on Disney Plus, which arguably should have been a movie, but we'll get into that a little bit later. But before we get into that, Evan, we've had some new trailers this year.
Oh my gosh. For everybody that listened last week, we finally got our Fantastic Four trailer. And I just got goosebumps. Dude, I got so excited. I saw it, and of course, immediately I texted and sent you 1,000 messages saying, please go watch this.
I'm excited for it.
Oh my, that's what I'm like. I saw the trailer and I said, Marvel is going to do a good job with this movie.
It looks like they're not.
It's really fresh.
It looks like a balance between the Chris Evans Fantastic Four and the 2015 one. It was just an absolute disaster.
Yeah, those were horrible.
It looks like a balance in the sense that the 2015 one went hard into like the gritty, dark kind of vibe, and then the 2005 one was completely just corny.
It was more family friendly. Yeah, it was what a Marvel movie almost is.
So it looks like it's kind of going in the middle,
and so happy
but in
about.
A good way, because
and we get Galactus. We got a little Galactus foreshadowing.
A very small tease at the end. But I will say I am liking what I'm seeing. I think it looks good. It looks like it's going in the right direction. And yeah, the cast
great
cast
director.
Looks great. So I think there's a lot of potential. From what I saw, I do think that it's going to be something that's worth seeing.
But speaking on the words of great, there's the not great. And recently, we saw the trailer for Jurassic World Rebirth.
Now, if there's a franchise that defines mediocrity, I would say it's Jurassic Park. I know
from the original three.
I'm going to get haters from that because a lot of people love the original Jurassic Park. I think the whole franchise is just very mediocre.
I mean, I understand that. For me, I really enjoyed that old cinema, right? I mean, maybe not 3, 100%.
3 was terrible.
3 was a little, but the original Jurassic Park movie, just the first one, was fantastic. Standalone, shouldn't have done anything. They should have left it.
I mean, I think Lost World was good.
Yeah, I did.
But
I also didn't mind the revamp with
Chris Pratt.
Yeah. And I was thinking of
the money grab Jurassic World.
They made a lot of money.
It is what it is.
They did.
But yeah, we do have a new trailer for Jurassic World Rebirth coming out in July.
However, the director is the one that directed Rogue One.
There's potential.
So I'll give him that.
Because Gareth Edwards is a talented director.
Yes.
That being said, it looks just like another Jurassic Park movie. What can I say?
It looks like it's going to be just as overwhelming as the Jurassic World, but it's not going to gross as much.
Something I will say, I give it credit for. It looks like it's taking the plot in a different direction.
Which I think is interesting.
Jurassic World had the same plot as Jurassic Park.
And it just kept rolling.
The second Jurassic World had the same plot as The Lost World. I don't remember what the hell the plot was for Jurassic World 3 because I just remember locusts and bringing it was like Fast and Furious. That's what it felt like. It felt like Fast and Furious of Jurassic Park.
That's awesome.
But no, I don't know that I'm optimistic about it, but I do think it has potential in the sense that it's going in a different direction.
Honorable mention. It was a little while ago, but I wanted to bring it up since we're on the Marvel topic before we get into Captain America. The trailer for Daredevil. Born Again.
Yeah, that
I'm
looks
very
intense.
excited for that.
It looks like it has potential.
It's been a while and I'll keep it super brief, but a lot of the Netflix Marvel adaptations were awful. Daredevil was fantastic.
Yeah, I watched a little bit of Daredevil back when it was being released.
Amazing.
And I liked it, but I'm not much for shows. It's just
I agree with that.
I'm much more of a movie guy.
Yeah.
So that said, it does look good. I don't know if I'll be watching it just because it's not really my forte.
Yeah, we'll cross that bridge. I probably will.
We'll figure it out. But with Marvel, all things Marvel, we are going to talk about the movies that you've likely seen already with the Captain America trilogy. So, you know what? Let's get started. We have Captain America, the First Avenger, released 2011. This movie is going on 14 years old.
Isn't that crazy to think about?
I still remember the very day I saw this movie in theaters. It was July 20. I don't remember what the day was.
I was going to say, that's crazy.
I think it was my brother's birthday.
Oh, wow.
But we saw it. My brother, who bought the tickets, brought us front row seats. Like, we were literally the front row. So we're just staring up, the huge screen.
Ow. Right.
And your head and your neck is killing you by the end of the day. But
it's so worth it.
That said, it was a good experience. It was fun. And it what springboarded my love for Captain America.
Mm-hmm. I get that. I mean, just another kind of honorable part about it.
We just fast forwarded. We're good.
Chris Evans was built for that role. The same reason why.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Wow. Whoa.
Robert Downey Jr.
was
made
built for
Tony
Iron
Stark.
Man.
Yeah, right.
Yes. Like he's done the perfect job at portraying who Captain America is.
No, yeah, I agree 100%. And you get that the moment you start, like, just right from the very
watching
beginning.
the movie. Mm-hmm.
So what would you say? Okay, so here we've just barely rewatched them all. What would you say are your pros? What are the reasons why people should watch Captain America, the First Avenger?
Well, it's kind of a fun, original Marvel film where it's kind of that, like, still a little goofy with some, not the best CGI. They're introducing a new character. It just felt a lot more fun to me and a great introduction to this character that's going to be in this Infinity Saga for a really long time. And overall, I didn't think it was clearly the best, just preference-wise, but I did really like it because, again, it was just it was a new character that we got to see visually on the screen, and I love that.
I really like the old-fashioned kind of classic American hero vibe that you get from it. Mm-hmm. So this movie was directed by the same guy. Did you ever see The Rocketeer? It's an old 90s movie directed by Joe Johnston, who directed Captain America, the First Avenger. And
Rocketeer.
It's
who's
like
in the Rocketeer? Actors.
So it's he played James Bond, but not Pierce Brosnan, the guy before that, Timothy Dalton.
Oh.
It's Timothy Dalton, but he plays like a Nazi villain, but it's got the same kind of vibe. So if you've seen Captain America, the First Avenger, it has a similar vibe.
That's fun.
To The Rocketeer, but it has like this very classic kind of innocent American hero type of vibe.
Yeah.
And I love that about this movie. As I was watching it, just like,
I get that.
I hadn't seen it in a while since I rewatched it.
Yeah, me neither. And it was so weird going back through it again.
Yeah, going back, I'm like,
I forgot about
this movie is actually a lot better than I remember. It feels more innocent. It feels more like it was made to entertain you. It feels like they put a lot of love and care in it in order to just actually give you a fun comic book type experience.
Which it did.
Absolutely.
It was really fun.
I loved the way they introduced Bucky and Steve's relationship right at the beginning. Mm-hmm. I think right from the very start, you begin to know and see.
They're brothers,
right?
Basically.
Exactly.
They've got each other's backs. They're messing with each other. I mean, they're signing up for the army and everything together.
Right. And right from the very beginning, you see how they work off of each other, right? You can see how they are sarcastic with each other. You can see how Steve is frustrated with the fact that he's just this little gimp who can't really do anything. You see that he has the aspiration to help people. You see that he's kind of almost jealous of Bucky's position, being able to do that. But you also see Bucky's sympathy and knowing that he's this smaller guy, he can't really do much. And that relationship just works really well. And even though they only have a few scenes at the start before they go off to war, you can feel their friendship is much deeper, much longer than just the 20 minutes we've seen of it.
Well, I mean, there's probably a lot more, of them knowing each other kind of thing. And then especially while they're in war together, now that Steve Rogers is Captain America, they're fighting together side by side, working through things, killing all the Nazis and Hydra, basically. It was just cool to see. I really enjoyed it. I'd give it, that kind of like fun score. Wasn't perfect, but
it definitely wasn't a perfect movie, but it's a lot better than I remember.
It's a lot better than some of the other Marvel movies.
Oh yeah, we could go down that rabbit hole, but
I
loved the story arc that Captain America goes through, going from this small fry who wants to help people to taking the serum, And I guess something I didn't notice before that I noticed this time, which they deliberately say in the movie, so I should have, but I didn't. But they were making the plan, right, to have a whole team of super soldiers, which is why when all the other serum is destroyed, Tommy Lee Jones' character, what's his name? Colonel Phillips. He's like, I asked for an army, all I got was you. I never understood that. It's like, isn't this what you asked for? But it's like, okay, they were trying to get an army out of it. But I love the part where just the whole development where he goes from being someone who wants to help, he gets the serum, and then he essentially turned into a war propaganda. He's into this idol of war propaganda.
It was an icon, literally.
And then I loved how they adapted. They literally put the comic books in the movie by doing that, by making Captain America as this figure, this almost like this superhero, this fake superhero, but in the world. And then he actually turns into a real hero by going and rescuing the 107th from behind enemy lines and essentially taking control as Captain America.
Yeah.
There's a lot of other things that I love about this movie, but one of the ones that I think Marvel needs to learn from a lot more is the way they do their women characters, their female characters. Because Peggy Carter is a great character in this movie. She's very strong, okay? If that's what you're looking for, she's a strong character. But she's not overbearing and annoying, which is what Marvel has turned into in a lot of their movies. And she doesn't downplay every other male character in the story just because she's a woman. And if that doesn't say anything about the state of Marvel movies, I don't know what will. But they need to learn from that, I think, 100%.
Oh, 100%.
Now, the last thing I will say about this movie that I love is the score.
Okay.
Alan Silvestri's score.
Good take.
It's got
Good
this... Again, it's a very classic American score that has that theme song that you're whistling when you go out of the movie theater because it has a very memorable... very memorable, iconic theme.
I didn't really pay enough attention to the score to really enjoy it, but maybe that was just...
You're missing out, brother.
By the story.
You're missing out.
Apparently. I was just more intrigued by the story itself that I didn't consider, and like my brain didn't register. Oh, good music.
I may or may not listen to the Star Spangled Man several times.
Wow.
No, that's not true. That's not true at all. Now, given all those things, what would you say are what's some of the downside? What are
I mean,
what keeps this from being a better
it's kind of
movie?
hard because you have to be a little bit lenient of it because it came out 2010, right? Is that
11.
what you said? Or 11, sorry.
11.
In 2011, so the CGI wasn't really the best. There were some like cheesy scenes, and the one that I think of the most is when he climbs on top of the tank, drops the grenade in, and he's like jumping, and you see his legs move like 10 times while he's in the air, but his body hasn't moved.
Type. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like, but it's older, right? So they can kind of like get away with that a little bit, just technology-wise. It's just...
Yeah, no, I mean, that's definitely one of my cons as well, is that there's like, times...
some of it was a little...
There's times where it's very over the top and it's very green screen heavy, and you can see that.
Yeah.
And like any movie, when that happens, it takes you out of it. It just completely takes you out of the story. And so there's several scenes I can think of, with the tank, which that tank is like 50,000 feet tall. Like, there's like buildings around it. It's like as tall as like 8-story buildings. Like, that's not how big a tank is, but whatever, bro.
Yeah,
I don't know if that was intentional, if that was a mess up on the CG.
I think it's still like funny to see, but like it's cool, right? Like, oh, he's a one-man soldier or one-man army, which he really is. But when I was like watching it, I was like, it's going in the podcast.
I mean, and that's the thing about all Marvel movies now is the CG just it hasn't aged well. Like, it just hasn't.
But that's kind of the fun of it.
Until you start watching the later movies, then you're like,
and then
is it so fun? Now, another thing I will say, given when you look at Red Skull in this movie, he's essentially an Indiana Jones villain, right?
It felt very Indiana Jones in the beginning.
He loves ancient artifacts. He's a Nazi. He's kind of obsessed with the supernatural. I mean, he's an Indiana Jones character, but he just wasn't that great. That's not to say
he didn't really feel threatening.
Yeah.
I mean, like, it's hard because there's a lot of bad guys in the Marvel universe that you see that you're kind of like, that you grow a little bit of attachment to. And then there's others that are just kind of like, they're just there.
Yeah, and I don't think that Red Skull was that great. That's not to say that Hugo Weaving isn't a good actor, because he is, and he's been in good stuff.
He's done quite a bit of work, but I don't know. I think that they didn't do a really good job at really making Red Skull seem like this big threat.
Yeah, no, I agree, 100%.
It's okay, but
now before we give you our final rating on this movie, we got to remind you of our scale of where we're at, right? What kind of movies I love, what kind of movies Evan loves. So here we have Sheldon's scale, my scale, right?
So disappointing to see the creator as number 5, but that's okay.
We'll talk about that another time. But at number 1, which should come to the surprise of nobody who has ever seen this movie, Independence Day Resurgent, not to be confused
with the original.
Yeah, the original is great.
The original was an amazing cinematic masterpiece.
That is one of my favorite movies. I watch it every July 2nd because that's when the movie starts, every July 2nd. But the second one was an abomination. Nobody should ever watch it again. That was absolutely a 1-star. It's no question about it. They're kind of in the middle of my scale. And I guess this probably relates more to action movies than anything. Is we have the creator. Maybe the creator wasn't a 5. Maybe it was better than that, but I had very high expectations for this because it was directed by Gareth Edwards.
I was the same way going into this movie. I was seeing it with somebody at the time, and I was like, oh my gosh, the man who directed Rogue One is making another movie. And I just saw the movie with Tenet not too long ago, or I rewatched it at the time, and I was like, I love this actor.
So John David Washington. It had a score by Hans Zimmer. It had the cinematography by the same guy that did the Batman, Greg Fraser. Mm-hmm. I had high expectations for this movie. That said, I was let down.
I gave it higher than a 5.
That's why I have it at a 5, because it was let down. Now, as a 10 is my absolute favorite movie, which is Mission Impossible Fallout.
Which I understand. It's not my personal favorite, so I'm not going to put it as a 10.
That is an absolute... That's an absolute gem.
That is a monster score for a movie. Like,
it's a monster score. It's got some monster set pieces.
Personally, I put it up there. It's not a perfect 10 in my book.
I will fight you until my death on that.
I'm okay with that.
It's beautiful. That said, here's what we're working with. That's my scale. That's how I view movies. Evan, tell us about your scale.
Well, of course, as you know, I think I'd rather rip my eyes out and have to go do, I don't know, probably anything, eat dirt, than have to watch The Dial of Destiny again.
Respectable. I understand that.
I actually saw a really funny bit, or a little kind of quote that Harrison Ford said, and somebody was complaining about the movie, and he was like, I just did it for fun. And I was like,
I think I saw that. Was that one that just barely released?
Yeah. He was like, I just did it for fun. I'm like, okay, sure, bud. Anyway, number 5, I put Fast 10.
I can respect that. Fast 10 is a very 5 movie.
Especially since, I mean, rest in peace, Paul Walker died. Oh, man. Very, very sad.
It is sad.
But literally, they just gave up on the end. They gave up on the entire story since, what was that, 7, I think was his last film?
Yeah.
5 and 6 got a little, and then 7 I was kind of like, okay, it's not bad, but then it just got horrible from there. Yeah. I like it. It's got cool cars. It's like, but if I had the choice to watch anything else, I'd probably take it, and if it was on, I'd probably just sit there.
Yeah.
So it's like
why not?
That's how I feel about
that's
it.
A 5.
If something else is on, then I'd probably take whatever else. Or I wouldn't choose this. Let me rephrase that. I wouldn't choose this movie to watch, but if it was on, I'd be like, and I'd just sit there and enjoy it for a bit.
I agree with that. I get that.
And then 10.
Don't even get him
Interstellar.
Don't even get him started.
I have the tattoos for it. I love the score. I cry to this movie all the time. I drink to this movie. I will die.
It's a religion.
I will die.
It's a religion for Evan.
For the sake of it, I'm going to pretend that I didn't just say that because we will get into this rabbit hole. But that is my list of how I scale movies.
That's how we're working. That's what we're working with. Given that, let's rate Captain America: The First Avenger. Now, talking beforehand, we kind of know what we're dealing with.
I think we had the exact same score.
Funny to see. We both gave it a
solid 8. Yeah,
which is respectable. That's a very good movie.
Wasn't perfect.
What it is
wasn't bad, but it was still really fun.
Yeah, it is. I think it's a great movie to rewatch every couple years, and I would highly recommend anybody to rewatch it every couple years because it's what Marvel movies still should be.
Yeah. Hearing us go through the score and talking about this just makes me so excited for this next step. I wish that we could just skip everything and just talk about what we're about to, because I mean,
let's talk about it.
Oh my gosh. Fantastic
Captain America,
movie.
The Winter Soldier. This movie
is beautiful.
It's
well directed, great score,
great movie.
And it had such a detailed plot that it genuinely kept you engaged. You were fighting for the good and the bad guys the whole time.
And what I love so much is just how different the First Avenger and
compared
Winter
to this
Soldier
is
they're so different.
They're still Captain America stories,
right? And they work really well as Captain America stories.
But the first one's, I mean, like you said, pretty lighthearted and fun, and this one was very serious.
It takes
action
it on a darker
thriller,
turn. And it's incredible, and they work so well
good
together as a sequel because it goes from this really classic 1940s American hero in World War II.
Yeah.
And then it takes you into almost like a 1970s political thriller.
Yeah.
With, almost like a Cold War type thing. That's kind of what the vibes you get, is that it's a very Cold War kind of movie. With the plot being about a secret society that's infiltrated the government
literally from the bottom up almost.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Give me some of your favorite things about this movie.
Well, first off, one of my favorites is the cinematography in the action scenes, specifically the ones when Buck and Cap are fighting, where he's basically just the civilian almost, and he's first seen who the Winter Soldier is before he takes off the mask and sees. But that whole like choreographed scene, it was really intense. It was like a great, beautifully written 5 minutes of just awesome action. I was just like, I could just rewatch that scene over and over.
I think that this movie does very well at balancing quick cuts and shaky cam. Okay, because that's one of my problems with Civil War, which we're going to talk about in a minute, is that Civil War leans way too much into that. Winter Soldier gives you that high intensity feeling that the shaky cam, the quick cuts are supposed to do, but it doesn't lean into it so much that it's unwatchable.
Yeah, and it feels like this is just, it didn't feel too excessive. And I also loved, especially that's probably one of my favorite scenes in all of Marvel history, because the music build up, it's like really subtle, and then it starts to get really like intense, but it's not really taking over the scene. There's still the fighting that you just like hear, and you start to then feel it.
Absolutely.
Oh.
And that's the other thing is Henry Jackman's score, right? So they didn't bring back Alan Silvestri for this score, but Henry Jackman does a great job of still making a very good Captain America score, but it matches the mood of the movie. Because if they brought back Alan Silvestri, he'd probably not
do a good job,
because
it wouldn't, it's more lighthearted.
It wouldn't match the story.
Yeah, it wouldn't have worked.
And so that's something I really love about this movie, is that it takes...
It took all the elements of being serious.
It takes what this movie is, and it uses a score that fits that perfectly.
I understand.
And so I think it's a very underappreciated score for that reason, because if you look at it, they hired Henry Jackman to come in. They already have a Captain America theme, but it just doesn't work in this now Cold War type of thriller
that they had
movie.
To almost change to fit the type of category this movie would fall in.
Right. Now, something I love about this movie as well is the character development that Steve goes through, because this is the most pivotal. This is the biggest moment of his character arc in the entire MCU, because it's where he goes. It's what it really turns him from being this trusty, straight-laced soldier in the United States Army to being someone who's kind of a skeptical rogue who no longer trusts big government organizations.
And he's doing what he needs to do.
Right. And then that obviously manifests itself a lot more in Civil War when he goes rogue.
Yeah, which we'll talk about in a few.
But it's so good.
I thought it was so emotional, especially at the end where, I mean, first we learn it's Bucky as the Winter Soldier. That for Cap was already such a big mind shake, and he was already so much in distress. But then at the end where he was literally willing to just die.
Right.
And I was like, I remember just watching that scene. I thought a little bit of the CGI. That was probably the only part.
That's one of my cons.
The movie that I was kind of like,
that's one of my cons.
A little too extra.
Like most Marvel movies, the CGI hasn't aged well. It just hasn't. And you're going to get that just with the fact that time passes and technology improves, but it is what it is.
Yeah. But overall, a beautifully, beautifully written, directed, acted movie. Oh my gosh.
No,
fantastic. I could rewatch it hundreds of times.
I love the Washington, D.C. setting for this movie because, it's Captain America. The seat of America is Washington, D.C. So I love setting it in there, but still not making it feel claustrophobic, like you can't go anywhere, like still having these good chase sequences, the good action sequences that kept it fresh and exciting.
Yeah.
And being that it is at its core, it's an espionage film. It's a spy movie.
Yeah.
I just love that you set it in Washington, D.C. It just feels so much like a Cold War type of spy movie.
Because it's happening in their home base almost. Yeah, the infiltration, the spy, the secrecy was happening under their nose.
Right. And it works so well in that. And another thing I love, just like the First Avenger, is the cast worked very well together.
Oh my gosh, 100%.
Given that most of these roles weren't their first movies, they worked very well together. Especially Steve Rogers and Agent Romanoff, Black Widow. They have a lot of chemistry.
Yeah, the kind of like brother-sister chemistry that they have is like kind of fun.
Yeah. It works very well together, and it makes you feel for both of them, especially given the fact that in universe and their characters, they're coming from very different places. Like Black Widow used to be an assassin,
and it's also kind of fun
Russia.
Because we don't really know much of like her backstory too much, at least in the movies, until her awfully movie,
which we're going to review when Thunderbolts comes around. We're gonna definitely watch
another movie I'm excited for. But yes. Anyway, yeah, I love this movie, and I could rewatch it till the day that if I ever got Alzheimer's, show me this movie again.
No, for sure. Yeah, it's great. Now that said, there are one or two cons, which I think we've already kind of gone on. And that's really,
as Marvel movies cease to amaze us in those areas. It's just how the CGI is.
CGI. And it's not even bad in this movie. It's just if you had to pick some things that weren't good. There's CGI towards the end of the movie. It doesn't age great.
The helicarrier's crashing that you're kind of like,
but it's still good. I think it still 100%. Works. And you can't. It's not like you can really go have a freaking real helicarrier crash, but
you could be like Christopher Nolan and crash a 747.
That's true. You could. Why not do that?
Just saying.
Throw Christopher Nolan and Tom Cruise together in a movie and see what kind of things they could actually.
Somebody would literally die.
Yeah, no, that's for sure.
But it would be so worth it.
Oh, yeah, 100% would. That's why it's never going to happen. We're not that blessed. But that said, Captain America, The Winter Soldier, in my opinion, is the best Marvel movie.
I'd put it up there. I recently rewatched Endgame, which Infinity War was kind of fun because it was like an introduction. Endgame, I cried again, and I was sober.
I think the reason I like Endgame better is because it has more Captain America.
It does.
Captain America is my favorite
It's more
character, so.
His story a little bit, where Infinity War, it felt like it was a little bit more of Iron Man's because we saw a lot more of Iron Man fighting Thanos, and now in Endgame, it was him getting Mjolnir. He was the one who was still standing.
Oh man, when Doomsday comes out next year, we're gonna go back and review the 4 Avengers movies.
Ultron, the first event,
because they're good. They're good.
I'm so excited.
That said, I do think Captain America: Winter Soldier is the best Marvel movie.
I think it's up there.
I'll probably die on that hill unless they can, impress me with something else. So, given that, let's talk about our ratings.
I think we tied again because of how
we did.
That little half point.
We're kind of predictable. We gave him a 9.
That little half point was just because of the little CGI at the end. I swear to you, when I was rewatching it again, I was like, dude, this is like a perfect movie in my eyes. And then it kind of got to the end, and I was like paying a little bit less attention, and then I started to realize. I guess
there's one more con that knocks it half a star, is that I don't like Captain America's costume at the end. And that's just a personal preference.
I love this.
This is sweet.
So cool.
There's nothing technically wrong with it. It
just didn't really. It didn't
in the context of the
feel
story.
like it fit really well.
But yeah, no, I think just visually it didn't fit with the rest of the movie. So if they had figured out some way to get him back in this suit,
this movie felt a lot more on like a gray scale. So when they brought a lot more of that blue, I wasn't really like.
Yeah. That's a personal preference. I'm not gonna.
I get that.
So I didn't really knock at any stars for that, but it's just a personal preference.
Yeah.
Now that said, here we have. Okay, another thing I did observe about these movies, going from the First Avenger to the Winter Soldier, is you can actually watch them pretty good as a sequel without having seen the other ones. That's not to say you will understand everything.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of Avengers references in this movie, but as a movie itself, as a Captain America movie, it does work okay as a standalone movie.
At least the first two.
Yeah, that cannot be the said
for Civil
War.
Civil War is a completely different ballgame with people from movies that if you only watched the Captain America movies, you'd be like, "What are you doing?"
Exactly, which isn't quite the same with the Winter Soldier because you can see Natasha Romanoff and like, oh yeah, she's an agent for S.H.I.E.L.D. So that works. You can see Nick Fury. Oh yeah, he's the director of S.H.I.E.L.D. You can see all these characters.
Yeah, we saw Falcon, but in this case, we didn't
know who he was. He was introduced, and
I guess like Wanda, maybe if you followed the Avengers aspect and you watched that one. War Machine, if you're just sticking to the Captain America ones, clearly Iron Man.
Yeah,
but I get what you're saying. I get
really
what you're saying.
all that Civil War is it's Avengers 2.5, right?
I forgot that we got introduced to Black Panther in this movie. I almost forgot. And Spider-Man.
Yeah, there's a lot of characters. There's a lot of characters in this movie.
Tom Holland. Short Kings. I'm not short, but
there's a lot of characters in this movie, and that might just be one of its flaws, because that's what we're going to take.
That is.
But first, let's talk about the good things. Let's talk about the good stuff. Tell me, Evan, what do you like? What is a reason why you would tell someone to watch Captain America: Civil War?
I really enjoyed number one, Chris Evans and Robert Downey Jr.'s chemistry on and off screen. They've always kind of been like bratty brothers to each other. So in this type of a setting where they're literally like, I don't want to fight you, but I will stand for what's right. Especially that like end scene with Iron Man fighting Captain America and Bucky. It just like this. We'll get into the score in a second, but it just felt really like I can understand this, and it felt a lot more. I felt a lot more engaged because I've seen these guys grow up with each other. In essence, they met. They did the Avengers. Right. They saved the world. They did it again, and now they're going through all these problems.
Right. Like, the fight meant a lot more because we've already seen, 4 movies with these characters.
Yeah, these guys have been established.
They've been well established.
So seeing a brother turn on each other, I was just kind of it was fun. I didn't like it, clearly. I was like, whatever. But I thought it was a really enjoyable.
It's a way to play with your emotions, to make it good, to make it worth it.
Yeah, we'll go with that. Yeah.
Anyway. Before we get into the cons, let's talk about the pros, because I do have some cons that are going along those lines.
After rewatching it, I loved Iron Man's suit up in the helicopter. He just leans back and goes, and it just fills him with his suit, and he just flies out, and the helicopter explodes. So cool. I don't know. I just love that scene. That's
kind of interesting, Evan. I'm going to be honest with you. No, I'm just kidding. No, it's all right. Okay, it didn't impress me. I'm like, okay,
I thought it was cool.
Whatever,
I was like,
Iron Man.
But like, I've always loved Iron Man suit ups from the beginning one, all the way up until not the nanotech.
I liked the first ones better because it felt more real.
The first time that we saw nanotech was cool.
Yeah,
that was it.
But if you look at like Iron Man and Iron Man 2 when he suits up, it's like it's so
the
much
suitcase.
More real. Yeah, like the suitcase.
So cool.
It looks so much. It's more intense and yeah.
So cool. Anyway,
something that I did think
that's one of my pros. I got 2 more that I want to go over.
Okay, hit me with another one then.
No, you do your. Like, we'll go back and forth.
Okay. This one's kind of a pro and a con.
Let's see if we get it.
So the action sequences, they were pro in the sense that they had a lot of thrilling qualities and the choreography was very good. But the shaky cam was so bad in this movie.
Especially at... First off, bad location, an airport. Like, there wasn't anything visually behind that I was like...
We are going to talk about that more, why that is one of the biggest problems in this movie. But the shaky cam is so bad, and I don't think I've seen a movie with this bad shaky cam since Quantum of Solace. Because Quantum of Solace, that's one of the reasons why I don't think I like that movie.
It's so sad because early James Bond movies are so fun.
That movie, it's good, but it's ruined by its editing and it's it
didn't really do good at post-production
as far as the action scenes go.
I get that.
And the same thing applies here. I think they were actually done pretty well for the most part, except for the airport scene, which we are going to get into because that was an absolute con of this movie. But as far as like the choreography of them, they did it well, but the shaky cam ruins it. It makes it a lot less.
Felt too
fun.
Chaotic.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I thought it was kind of fun to see a big group battle, right? That wasn't like an all-out war with like the Chitauri or Age of Ultron. So I thought that was kind of fun, and plus it's like people that we know, so it's basically good guys versus good guys, which everybody kind of likes to see a hero fall. The Willem Dafoe line,
Wow.
No, I won't get into that.
Wow. So what's your other pro then? Give me another pro.
Well, I just hinted at it just earlier, but our introduction to Tom Holland, which we'll eventually be reviewing Spider-Man stuff, which I love. I think he's done a great job, and he's still continuing to do a great job.
I agree that Tom Holland has done a good job as Spider-Man. He gets a lot of hate, but he's done really good. And I don't think liking the way he's done Spider-Man takes away from Andrew Garfield or Tobey Maguire. You can like all 3 of them.
And
right? That's
one
not
of
that
the
controversial.
characters from one of my favorite Marvel movies, Black Panther, was introduced. And I love the Black Panther movie. Like, that might score higher than Winter Soldier for me.
Not a chance.
The story of Killmonger and the Black Panther.
I haven't seen it in a while, so maybe I need to rewatch it.
Well,
but I think it's good. I don't think it's great.
Don't waste your time on the second. Just don't.
I haven't even seen the second. I haven't wanted to waste my time on that.
But those were probably my pros. I mean, of course, there's a lot more of it. Like, I enjoy seeing, Iron Man again. It was fun action, good jokes. But those were my really big standouts that I enjoyed from it.
I liked a lot the pacing. I mean, this movie was very well paced, to where it kept you engaged throughout the story. And also, I liked the kind of the globe-trotting-esque type of deal where the Winter Soldier, they were pretty much in DC the whole movie. Civil War, they go across the globe in this movie.
Just kind of fun.
I do like that because it keeps things a little fresh. It keeps your action sequence a little fresh. It kind of adopts that Mission Impossible James Bond type of deal where you're just jumping from location to location. And so I thought that was good. Another thing that this movie did really well, which more isn't so much this movie that did it, but all the movies leading up to establish why Steve Rogers believes what he believes and why Tony Stark believes what he believes. Right? Because
I agree with that.
they've both gone through very clear, distinct character arcs that drive them to these points, right? Steve used to be the straight-laced American soldier who he had to deal with seeing the organizations that he trusted completely overrun by Hydra to where he no longer trusts these big organizations. So he's seen these things to where now he is completely skeptical of any kind of oversight because he knows the kind of people that run it.
Well, in the comics, this is about the time that he basically almost, I forget how they phrased it or how I should phrase it, but he almost like walked away or disregarded America because of how the president was in the comics, at least at the time. But that's a great reflection of his character in this movie.
Right. And then on the other side, you have Tony Stark, who starts off as kind of this rogue arms, I wouldn't say a rogue arms dealer, but
a little bit more just like whatever.
Right. He manufactures weapons.
Yeah.
He's kind of his own personality. He's very, do it yourself, very independent, doesn't take orders type of deal. But then he goes through the character arc of seeing people die at the hands of their actions, not having any kind of oversight.
And he starts to then change his accountability.
Right. And he starts to feel for that. And you can see that develop through the 3 Iron Man movies, through the 2 Avengers movies. So you can see very much why they would pit both of these people on these sides. It makes perfect sense in terms of their character, which I don't know if it's necessarily a reflection of this movie as much as it is a reflection of previous Marvel movies.
Yeah.
Now, I would say probably the final pro that I would mention of this movie is, like you said earlier, the emotional weight of the last fight between Steve and Tony.
I think the score did a really good job at being really like, you felt just connected to it, seeing whichever hero you fall for more, because there's clearly one that you're like, I enjoy Iron Man or Captain America more, but watching them both struggle, fight for their lives, and literally fight until either one of them almost gives out and dies. It really connected you to the story.
There's a lot of emotional weight to it. And again, I think it works very well, mainly because we've spent so many movies with these characters, so we love them both. We don't want to see either of them die, or we don't want to see either of them necessarily fail. But we all have our biases, right?
100%.
I was absolutely Team Cap, 100%.
And I was Team Iron Man, which is why we're sitting here.
Yeah, and so we had our own biases, but I love that. And I think a very important part of it, too, by the end of the movie, was having Captain America win that fight, only because it's a Captain America movie, right? If it was Iron Man Civil War, then I think you have to make your hero Iron Man win that fight.
I don't know. I mean, I feel like that would have been a really good take, because then, I'd love...
You're just butthurt because Iron Man lost, isn't that it?
No. What I'm saying is, if it was Iron Man's movie and Captain America won, I still think that would be good. The reason why I bring that up is because it's kind of like seeing the good bad guy win. Most of the time in every hero movie or whatnot, the good guys prevail and everything's peaceful.
That's kind of the thing.
If I was expecting Captain America to go, in theory, and Iron Man won, that'd be kind of like, I'd be like, oh, and then it really makes you even more connected because then you feel that defeat and you get upset with it and you're mad.
True. That's
I
true.
enjoy. That's why
I don't
love,
think you want to leave a movie theater feeling mad.
Well,
that's
no,
the problem with.
But
half
I
movies
still
today.
enjoy it.
Okay,
but like a great example is like.
I guess Infinity War would be kind of an example of that, where
where Thanos
snapped
wins
away. Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense.
Or my other two, and then we'll move on to the cons. Episode 3 of Star Wars.
Okay, yeah,
which is a perfect example of the bad triumphing the good, literally.
Yeah.
And then,
but it works. Yeah, it works well in that regard.
That's probably the best example where it's still a great story.
Mm-hmm.
You're emotionally connected to it, but then the bad people or the bad guys prevail, but you're still walking out of the theater like, wow.
You know what I'm surprised at? I'm surprised you didn't put Star Wars Episode 3 as your 10-star of this on the scale.
Well, it's hard.
Do you not
I'm not going to get into that because we're talking again a 2005 movie, so the CGI.
We'll talk about
for
Star
the generation
Wars.
Was great. Oh my god.
We'll talk about
Don't
Star
even
Wars
get me
later.
started on Star Wars.
Not today.
No.
Let's talk about cons. Cons of Civil War. Not the Civil War, but Civil War.
There's
a lot of cons there.
Well, yes.
We
mentioned the airport scene. That's okay. We just got to throw out there.
The airport sequence is what, for me, brings this movie down a whole few stars.
It was really doing it. Like, I see everything on a graph, and it was doing really well. And then you see all of them standing on their own lines, and stupid Natasha, she goes, "So we're really going to do this?" And I went, "Oh,
I know,
bro."
Right? And so I have three main reasons why the airport scene just doesn't work. Why it's the worst scene in the entire trilogy. You know, I'm gonna say that.
Well,
it's
I guess
the worst
that's
scene in the entire trilogy.
Okay, I could see that because
number one, the CGI has aged so poorly. Of that scene, it is probably some of the worst CGI.
Wow, look at us. Same answers as always.
It's so bad. It is so bad. Everything looks plasticky and cartoony, and it doesn't work. When you look at the rest of the movie, it's very grounded and gritty. Number two is that there's no stakes in that fight. Like, the stakes are completely non-existent. It's like having a playground fight. Like, they're not trying to kill each other. They're not trying to hurt each other. They're literally just fighting for the sake of fighting.
Yeah. I think it was a hard line that Marvel had to play because I see both sides, right? Because if they do it too much, that gets me into my next point. Yeah, because then it could create a lot of controversy. After I tell you the
third reason why it's terrible.
Yeah.
The third reason is that setting, like you mentioned, the airport setting. Why set a scene in an airport if you're going to evacuate the airport and not have any planes taking on or off? Because it just feels like a soundstage. That scene, you go and you rewatch it, they shot it on a soundstage, and it feels like they shot it on a soundstage.
I mean, the entire fight happens between technically two gates, but apparently the two gates are like 6 miles wide. Like, it's just this big area.
And let's be real. They're evacuating an airport isn't like, we can get that done in an hour. Like, come on, that's gonna take a day to evacuate an airport.
Maybe not a day, but it would.
And what about all the planes that are supposed to be coming in? Like, they can't just turn around and go back to their destinations. It's just if you're gonna choose to put a sequence at an airport that's supposed to have some tension, it would have
been really cool to see like a plane coming in and somehow it gets hit, and then Iron Man and War Machine,
and then then they have to deal with the fallout. It would be nice to see people panicking because now they're seeing the Avengers, who they all know in this world, fighting, and they don't even really understand why. Especially with the Sokovia Accords already in place.
That would have been really fun.
But just I hate the idea of setting something at this place that's supposed to be very populated and you take out everybody. I mean, it'd be like if they, in the First Avengers, if they do it at
a mall.
Well, if they had set the final battle in New York, but then New York was abandoned. It's like, what's the point of setting it in New York if there's nobody in New York? And it's the same way with an airport.
Yeah, I get that.
Now, that said, my next con, they're kind of two related to each other. The Civil War plot with the Sokovia Accords should have been an Avengers movie. It should not have been a Captain America movie.
Yeah, I understand why, because this movie and of course the kind of, stuff between it, Black Panther and some of the Spider-Man movies were leading up to, Avengers, the new one. So I could see why, but this doesn't really feel like it's a Captain America specifically movie.
It doesn't feel like that plot.
They really only did because it was more based around Bucky, if anything.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Bucky was the one who they learn actually killed Tony's parents. It gets mad. He has to go after him, hunt him. Like, all of this is really based around Bucky, but Cap just stays with him. So it's like,
right. So, in my opinion, they should have just made Avengers 2.5.
They could have.
Then made another Avengers with Infinity War Endgame. Because it should have just been an Avengers movie where then you can focus on all the Avengers. You can really make it be a war between the Avengers.
That's what it would feel like. Avengers.
And then what they should have done, in my opinion, is base the story completely around the December 16th, 1991 events. Completely base it around the fact that Bucky killed Tony Stark's parents and have something that is building up towards that. So you still have Tony Stark in the movie, but all the other Avengers aren't in the movie. But you still have Tony Stark attacking Bucky and make that be the focal point, is Captain America at the center of the movie trying to figure out how to balance the relationship between Tony Stark and his relationship between Bucky. And then you base the whole movie around that, which in a sense it is, but the Civil War plot, the Sokovia,
it just sounds like six superheroes just all got together and we're like, let's go beat up these other six superheroes.
And then really the last thing is this movie really places all its chips on everybody having seen a bunch of other movies leading up to this. Because like with First Avenger and Winter Soldier, you really only needed to have seen the Avengers, if that, between those two, because that's really all that connects them. This movie,
War Machine would be the only one.
War Machine's not in Winter Soldier.
No, that's what I'm saying. Like for Civil War.
Oh yeah, yes. For Civil War, you have to have seen Age of Ultron. You have to have seen the first Avengers.
You'd have to have seen everything. Man. Well, not everything, but like.
But yeah,
you'd be missing out on so much.
Right.
So many other back characters. I mean, like we got introduced to. I almost forgot Vision was in it. Looking at the poster, I forgot that he was just there.
Yeah, which he kind of is. Like go rewatch the airport scene, and he just kind of is there. He doesn't really do anything. It is what it is, though.
I don't want to have to rewatch it right now.
That said, let's talk about how we rate that. We did the same again. Who would have thought?
Damn it!
But we both gave this movie about a
7.5. Yeah.
Which,
honestly, I feel like is fair because it was still fun, right? We walked out of the movie theater. That was good. That was an okay movie. But it didn't have these elements.
When it initially came out in 2016, I loved this movie. I thought it was the best.
I did too. But
I was also 17 years old, so.
Yeah, but now looking back at it.
Looking back to it, it doesn't hold up like Winter Soldier does. And it even doesn't hold up to me like the First Avenger does in the sense of being a complete movie. And again, I think the airport scene takes this movie down a whole 2 stars.
Yeah.
I hate it. It's the worst.
Yeah.
But that said, I still like this movie, and I still think it's a good movie. I would recommend watching it. But
yeah, I think it's a fun watch. I mean, again, I'd put it on one of those things that, like, if it's on, I'll watch it, but I'm not, like, out of Marvel movies, but I'm not really like, let me watch this.
Now, our final preparation for Captain America Brave New World, and we don't really do this very much. We don't really review Disney Plus shows. We're more into movies, but being as it's a very much
it's based around the Captain America in this show.
It seems like you kind of need to see it. I mean, I don't know, maybe you don't need to see it to see Brave New World, but it seems like that's what they're going for. See. That's Falcon and the Winter Soldier. The Falcon.
Man, I'll tell you what. When we got this show released, before I saw it, I was so excited.
I was so pumped for this.
I was jacked out of my mind.
I was way excited to see it. I was so excited because I think Falcon and Bucky are very good characters. I don't think
they're opposites, but they work together well.
Yeah, I think they have good chemistry, which is why I was so excited for this, because it felt like it had the potential to be a buddy cop show.
Yeah.
And
one guy's holding up the law, and, well, then Bucky's just there doing whatever the hell he wants.
And
almost.
I don't think that's what we got, but let's talk about it. Tell me the reasons why you would recommend someone watching this, or what are your pros?
Well, my biggest pro about the show was their John Walker, guy that they brought in to play Captain America. I love how the entire story, I was just sitting there like, I hate this guy. And I emotionally felt so connected to this story. I was like, man, this guy sucks. He's awful. He shouldn't be Captain America. And I started to understand how the characters in the story felt. And that
I'm going to take an opposite approach on that. I like John Walker, but I understand the reason, because if you look at the first 4 episodes, there's nothing John Walker actually did that makes you hate him. the reason why you hated him is the directing style.
Yeah, I know.
The music, the shots, the way that people talked about him and treated him, it made you inherently dislike him, even though he hadn't done anything.
That's why I respect the show, because they did their job at making me feel like this dude was literally a piece of shit. And I was like, he is.
But that's why I liked him until episode 4. I felt bad for him. Like, why does everybody hate this guy?
You kind of have a little bit of sympathy
but
to
then,
be like, ooh. But then you're like...
But then I like... It made sense because I was really hating the fact
Episode 4 was when he smashed that dude's head in.
Yeah. So I really hated the fact up until he turned. I mean, he didn't really turn, but I hated the fact that all the directing style was telling you to hate him and they didn't give you a reason for hating him. So I hated that. But...
I understand that.
Given that, I did like how it kind of came to terms when he takes the serum, he goes and smashes the guy's head in, which I understand why he would do that. So I'm not even going to fault him for that.
Yeah, I'm like, okay.
But then when he tries to attack Bucky and Falcon, that's when I understood, okay, I can understand why your directing style is trying to tell me to hate this guy because now you give me a reason to hate him.
Yeah.
But that said, I still liked him as a character in the sense that I like that he's not... I think he's a very well done gray character, meaning he's not a bad person.
Yeah.
But he's clearly dealing with some issues that make you dislike him, that he has bad choices.
Yeah.
So in that sense, that he's a very middle character, and I think he's done very well because those aren't always done very well.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, that was my biggest one. Is I just overall emotionally felt more connected to the show. Like I wanted to stay more engaged because it was really hard to stay engaged during the show. I also felt that Bucky and Falcon's chemistry was just fun. Like they were just like stupid with each other. They'd make fun of each other, and it was just like funny.
I think they didn't lean into that enough.
I agree.
They should have leaned into that a lot more.
Got another con in a second.
I would have liked it a lot more. I also liked the idea of where Bucky was in terms of his character, of having him being in a place where he's seeing a therapist. He's trying to make amends
literally
for what he's done in the past, and I like that because
the subplot of the Asian kid that hurt.
Yeah, that
hurt.
That was very sad. And I appreciated that. I really liked that they brought in. He's trying to be with this old man who he killed his son a lot of years earlier. Not his fault, obviously, because he was brainwashed.
My heart.
But it got you in a place where you could feel the pain of what Bucky is.
Yeah, because he wants to do good, but he can't speak for the actions that he has made. He just has to try and do better.
Exactly.
But he's also still like, man, I'll beat anybody up.
Now, my last pro, because I have a lot of cons. My last pro is that the story... I liked the story in the sense that I liked how much potential it had. I liked the idea of there being terrorists who liked the world better during the blip. But the execution...
That felt like a real problem.
The execution, I think, was horrible.
I agree.
I will talk about that.
Yeah, we will.
But I do like the idea of it. I just think it just wasn't executed well.
On that note, for the cons now, because I don't have anything that I'd rather talk about that was good about this show, was the villain. Like, just the whole subplot of them suddenly having 7-8 super soldiers running around creating havoc. The flag smashers.
I absolutely hated the
so
villain.
dumb.
And not because they're bad and they're like, oh, I hate him. I want the hero to beat him. I hated it because it was so poorly written. Why on earth?
I felt no emotional connection.
Exactly. Why on earth, in terms of the directing style and the writing, why on earth are you trying to get me to sympathize with this character?
I'd rather have them get rid of the terrorists and they just die, and it's about John Walker and the Falcon having to
why in the world are you trying to get me to sympathize with a girl who's literally willing to kill innocent people, blow them up in buildings, run people off the road into ravines and
It's like I care.
Why am I supposed to sympathize with that person just because she wanted free shit when the blip happened? That's literally what it came down to. She was pissed that people had to come back into their houses because they came back from the blip. It's like, well, guess what? You never owned any of that stuff, and now you're willing to kill innocent people to get back something you never owned. It sounds like people in Hollywood. That's literally just the mindset of writers in Hollywood.
100%. I will say the logic of them doing more on the blip I thought was kind of fun, especially since it kind of just happened, and then we just kind of got right into the shows and stuff. So I thought it was still kind of fun that they still took that approach, especially like Spider-Man No Way Home did, where they still had to now incorporate that into the story. And I thought that was kind of fun because then it's still keeping us on a similar timeline.
I think that the idea of incorporating the blip and the problems that come with that into the story was good.
And then
but just don't try and make me, don't try and be preachy to me to be sympathetic towards people who are willing to blow up buildings with innocent people.
It was dumb.
Don't try and say that, like, because at the end of the sixth episode, Falcon's like, you have to stop calling them terrorists. Why do I have to stop calling them terrorists? She literally blew up a building full of innocent people. She literally was willing to drive a truck full of people off of a ramp and kill them all. And you're telling me this isn't a terrorist? Then what is a terrorist, Falcon? Give me a break.
There was just no real desire in the plot. Like, it felt too chaotic to me. Because at first it was a Falcon story, right? He's given up the shield. He's sad.
Which they should have gone with. They should have
kept with that. And then it came, John Walker was in place, and now they're butting heads. And then we get the terrorists, but now they're butting heads while they're trying to save people. But then John Walker's basically out of the picture. Sam and Bucky have to step up. Like, it just felt like it was so chaotic, and I was like, this is not for 6 episodes.
That's okay. That's another problem, is that this should have been a movie.
100%.
This didn't need to be a 6-part show.
They should have done
and that's my other con.
They could have done a really good, well, yeah, I mean, in the timeline aspect, spreading out them, putting Captain America into place and letting him grow.
But you still could have done that in a 2-hour and 10-minute movie. The reason why this was a freaking series is they had so much unnecessary filler plot with Falcon's sister and the boat. Oh, I don't care about any of that.
Agent 13?
Yeah,
who suddenly is a murderer?
I know. That's
what the hell?
What? Where on earth?
She's
where on earth is her character? Like that? That's not her character in Civil War. Now all of a sudden she's just this like super powerful mercenary.
She went from. I mean, she's Peggy Carter's granddaughter. She
was a straight-laced CIA agent.
Yeah, to like, I murder and destroy anybody for money now. It's in some stupid random country.
I know, it's so dumb. It doesn't make any sense. And then there was like 2 full episodes of runtime that we were dealing with the boat and Falcon's sister. I didn't care about any of that.
I didn't either.
There's no reason to have that in an action movie that's about Captain America, Falcon, Bucky. There's no reason to have any of that. It doesn't even make me like any of their characters anymore. It's just annoying. It's like, get me to the freaking action. I want to see the action. I want to see superheroes beat each other up.
That's what this show's supposed to be about.
And it was so filler. And if you took out all that unnecessary bullcrap,
you might have a decent movie.
You would have the runtime of a movie. Another thing is all the Madripoor stuff. When they go to Madripoor, and it's like this discount Star Wars where
it felt kind of dumb.
It was, I hated it. I think it was so weird and so unnecessary.
Yeah, it felt like it tried to be this grimy version of like Neo Tatooine.
Yeah, and it fell out of place.
Clans. Yeah, it was dumb.
And anyway. So as a whole, there were certain things I liked about it, but
yeah, I had a few more things that I enjoyed about it.
My last one that I absolutely hated is it was so preachy. It was so preachy. I do not want to sit down
with the one girl always trying to stand up to make a cause.
It's just all the heavy-handed racism crap. Like,
I
do not want to sit down and watch a show and then try and feel bad because I'm white just because you're telling me that I'm a bad person.
Which I felt was a little. I mean, I understand that that's a real problem.
No, but tell me,
could happen.
Did you hate the fact that Sam Wilson was Captain America because he was black? Like, be honest.
No,
you didn't.
I enjoy Sam's character. Like nobody, except for maybe you pull somebody out of the middle of BFE in Texas.
Yeah, freaking if you have some 90-year-old farmer in Texas, maybe you're gonna get racism. Like, give me a break. That nobody else is gonna care that Captain America is black. Just like we didn't care that Falcon was black. Give me a break.
Whatever. I think
it's just that I think was one of my biggest problems. That's why I did not enjoy this as a watch, because there was so much heavy-handed preaching trying to tell me that just because everybody's white in America, everybody's bad.
It again, I did skip through a few things,
which I should have done. But
I was just like, this part again.
I had to sit through it. Something tells me that the final rating you gave me is not going to match up with what you're about to say here. We have a problem.
Not really. I stand by my rating because I do feel that way about the show because. Well, we'll get to it in a second, and then I'll explain.
No, tell me. Give me... Okay, and you know what?
I really didn't mind it.
Let's get to our ratings.
I didn't mind it. I really didn't.
So, I went back and forth on this one, but ultimately, I gave it a 5. And I think that's generous. Not because, like, there were things I liked about it, but the terrible villain, the unnecessary filler subplots, and then the heavy-handed racism preaching, that brought it down a whole 5 or 6 stars. So I think the 5 is generous for what it is.
Okay.
Evan, tell us about why you gave it a 7. I want to know. I genuinely want to know what.
I think for me, I really enjoyed the fact that I felt a lot more attached to the storyline. Like I felt like I wanted to pay attention more, and it drove me to just keep watching through it. Honestly, I also love Bucky.
Yeah.
Like, the Winter Soldier, I'm a really big fan of. Also,
I
Sebastian
agree.
Stan is a great actor. They sadly underappreciated him in Marvel. That's a whole
Oh
conversation.
yeah, for sure.
But honestly, as I rewatched it again, I was like, this isn't. There's a lot of it that I was just kind of like, eh. Clearly, if we took all of that out, we'd have a pretty decent movie. But I gave him the benefit of the doubt because I was like, it was a fun watch. I probably won't want to do it again.
I mean,
but I enjoyed it. I was like, it's okay.
Ultimately, I think it should have been a movie. You should have just. There's a lot you should have. They probably should have just turned that into Captain America 4.
They probably should have just done. Or they could have focused it a lot more and actually did like a focus around the Winter Soldier. That would have been fun.
Well, you could even have done just having this be Sam Wilson's Captain America origin story movie to where it shows you how he becomes Captain America, where he does give up the shield.
And then this next one, Brave New World, is him now.
And then, yeah, that's almost like your Winter Soldier, where he's a very established, but you didn't really get that. And now...
They tried, almost, right? Because at the very end, Captain America is now the Falcon,
which is
vice versa.
What I think should have been a movie. Because now you're going to have people
100%.
going to see Brave New World who may not have seen this. They're going to miss a large part of it.
Yeah.
But John Walker's character and Bucky does get me excited for Thunderbolts.
I was just going to say, I loved one other thing that I forgot is that one weird girl that showed up at, of course, the end of all the random Marvel movies. Seeing her come up to John Walker.
Yeah.
I think that was the first. No. Did Black Widow come out before this? No, it came out after this.
No, I think, it came out after.
Because we saw her there.
Yeah, she shows up there.
We saw her in Black Widow. And then it kind of just like...
Hawkeye, right? Did she show up in Hawkeye? I don't know.
I didn't watch the show.
But she's in Thunderbolts.
Mm-hmm.
So,
which is kind of cool because then it's their way of setting up their other.
It's almost like
subplot that's kind of going on in the background.
She's almost like Nick Fury for the original Avengers. She's like essentially forming her own Avengers team, except it's like with
Marvel Suicide Squad.
Yeah,
which is what Thunderbolts is going to be. Which I'm still excited for, but that's not.
Yeah, I mean, I have it on my anticipated movies of the year. So, what can I say? But all that said, that hopefully gets everybody up to speed on our thoughts.
Brave New World next week. And I'm so excited. We're doing a midnight release. And honestly, we just talked about it right before the episode. I'm just excited to go sit in a comfy chair, have popcorn.
And watch a movie on the big screen, baby.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't gone and seen a movie in the theaters that I've like really wanted to, except for Interstellar. But I've already seen it. This is new.
Yeah.
The feeling of sitting in a recliner with your popcorn and a soda, maybe some candy if you like it, and seeing something on the big screen for the first time, there's something about it that you genuinely can't beat.
Which we are absolutely one of these
days. I might honestly give this an honest star up because I'm seeing it in the theater.
One of these days, we're going to have to do an episode on the reasons why you should go to the theater instead of stream. I could talk for hours on that.
I could too.
But that said, Brave New World coming out this coming week,
February 14th. Valentine's Day.
Do yourself a favor, honestly, like keep the theater industry going. Go buy a ticket, go see it. It might suck.
Even if it's $5 Tuesdays. I love $5 Tuesdays. At least we have them here.
I'm mixed feelings on it. I love that it's cheaper. I don't like it because everybody's too loud. I don't like people talking during my movies.
I was very lucky to experience the Endgame with a big group of people that were cheering and clapping.
Okay, that's different though.
That was
because
peak.
Like say you go to an opening night showing of a big movie like that, you have fans who will cheer at the big parts but they aren't going to talk throughout the movie.
Yeah.
They're going to watch the movie, respect the movie.
I see what you're saying.
But like you go on a $5 Tuesday, you have your random Joes who just show up.
It's the 18-year-olds that are little shitheads that were like, you want to go on a date?
Yeah, exactly.
They're like, let's go see Captain America.
Yeah, exactly.
Then you're like, man, I just want to watch the movie. I get that.
That said, I'm excited to go see a movie.
I am as well.
We'll see how it goes. Let us know in the comments what you think of the Captain America trilogy, as well as Falcon and the Winter Soldier. and let us know if you're even excited for Brave New World. And then join us again next week when we actually review Captain America Brave New World, which comes out. And with that said, thank you for watching. Spoiler alert, and we'll see you next time.